All right. Cody Carson of Set It Off. Thanks for joining me today.
Dude, my pleasure. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good today. Feel good.
Awesome. All right. Just to kind of jump right into it. Um, I find that the history of this kind of start of Set It Off really interesting,
Yeah.
where you were at a music college studying classical clarinet, right?
Yep.
Out of marching band in high school.
Yep.
When one thing led to another, and you got on stage with All Time Low, and then you were
Mhm.
like, you know what, I'm going to start a rock band. Could you just kind of talk to your background in music, where you kind of ended up doing classical clarinet in college, and then how that shifted into I'm going to do a rock band?
Yeah. How much time you got? Basically, I started playing clarinet when I was in second grade because I saw my sister getting lessons from my grandfather on saxophone, but it was too big for me. I was a small kid, so he taught me how to play that, and I stuck with it for like 11 or 12 years, and to the point where it was going to be my career. But I've always loved bands because my mom and dad were in a band. So when I was a kid, I would get to see them perform, and I always was like obsessed with the drums. So like when they were sound checking, I'd get on the drum kit. And then eventually in high school, I got into my first like rock band. Technically it was ska. And then I started as just a drummer, then drummer and background vocals. And then my next band was drummer and co-lead vocals. And I was in love with it. I was like, it's like the first time I found my confidence, and I felt like I had a real purpose as to what I was here to do. Like I just always the performance aspect. So my last band in high school was called One More Shot because it was literally in our opinion, like at that time, or like this is the last shot. And if we don't make it before I graduate, I'm done and I'm going to college, and then that's going to be my life. So when I went to college, I realized how little I fit in. Like no one listened to the bands or music that I listened to. Like they were all into, like they were talking about like Mahler and Beethoven, and great, it's great. But like I want to be like, yo, but what about Newfound Glory, man? Like what about Fallout Boy? And um and then I eventually through MySpace discovered All Time Low, the song Coffee Shop Soundtrack. And I started filling my time by borrowing an acoustic guitar from the dorm room across from me because I didn't have one at the time, and just like learning songs and like trying to learn how to write. Because I first wrote my songs in the previous band. It was the first time I ever wrote. So I was very new to it. And where I should have been spending more time practicing clarinet, I found myself in my room, like writing songs about things I was going through and like trying to learn how to record and doing YouTube covers. And I I got really, I figured I'd give it a full shot and asked Alex if I could sing on stage with him because I saw he saw one of my covers. He like responded to it, and I was like, "This is cool," because I was obviously a huge fan. And then I was in Oberlin, so I was near Cleveland, and so I bought my tickets to they were headlining the AP tour, which was them, Forever the Sickest Kids, Skrillex's a solo project from before. I think it was just called Sunny. And like it was just a really cool show, so I was gonna go see it regardless. And so I asked, "Can I sing on stage with you?" And later he said yes. And I got to experience what that was like. And as just like a vocalist, and as a front man. And it was like a drug. I know that's such an overused analogy, but it's the only way I can think to describe it. I was hooked from right there. And I through that got my parents' blessing. But the crazy thing about it, if we want to get real serious, is like my dad was battling cancer for the longest time, and his path in life was he went to college to Berkeley for trumpet performance and dropped out to be in a band. And so I asked for that blessing while he was battling cancer, and he was terrified of it and was so distraught that he had to like get up and take a walk. And I was like, I can't do this because then I'm gonna feel terrible. So I um I got the blessing to perform. I called my mom at like 4 in the morning that night, or morning, I guess. And it was like, a lot of people took videos of it. It's on YouTube. I'll send you a link. Just show it to him, please. And she did. And he was just smiling from ear to ear. And that because they saw that it's definitely hereditary. Like it's their fault. It's like passed down. That's all I want to do. And so they called me the next day and told me to take a year off of college. And a week after I got his blessing, he passed away. I left college right then and there. I didn't even finish my finals. I didn't even finish my first year, and just immediately got to work. Started forming the band. I knew exactly who I wanted to call first. I wanted it to be about good friends playing music together. Because I know from the bands I was in before, it's so important that you really love who you're in the band with. So yeah, it's always crazy to relive it, but it's just a wild story.
Yeah, that's super cool. I want to jump into, so you were talking a little bit about how you kind of got on stage and as a singer, as a frontman, more so for the first time with All Time Low at that concert. You were like, I got the bug. I want
Yeah.
to talk about your voice a bit,
Okay.
or a lot. We'll see. I've got a lot of questions.
Yeah, please, let's go.
So just to kind of lead up to that, to me, listening to you guys, and I think I mentioned earlier, you kind of surprised me immediately when I first started listening to Duality, and it's very powerful. And your voice is, you have really incredible like range and control, and there's a lot
Thank
of
you.
dynamics in the way you sing. It's just like these are things that my ear goes to, and it's very interesting. And so I'm wondering kind of the way that you got started, where you were at school, you kind of borrowed acoustic guitars and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, have you ever taken vocal lessons? Did you
Yes.
always consider yourself to be a singer, or did you just kind of start doing it?
Oh, no, I was not a singer initially. In fact, if you go back and you listen to like our first EP, Baby Don't Trip It Your Heart Out, which is the one I did in college on a like on an iMac with GarageBand with no producer skills, it sounds like trash. But that was like me first starting to sing, and then you really start to hear a switch in my voice in the EP Horrible Kids. There's what's funny about that EP is there's like 3 tracks on there that were recorded before we got to the studio, which was called At Reply and In Tragedy. If you just listen to those two compared to like the rest of the songs, you can tell my voice feels different. I sing all in my chest. And I cannot vouch if there's anyone listening to this or watching this that is playing an instrument currently and you're fully self-taught, you should be proud of that. That's really awesome. But take private lessons. I cannot stress that enough. If you can find somebody that can teach you something that you don't know right now at an expedited pace, like why not do it? And I think that really comes from my high school background. And like I was very blessed to have the band director that we did, Kevin Ford and Robert Barfield. Like they were just so adamant about go get lessons. And to be honest with you, when I was in that first ska band, I got made fun of by one of the friends of the band, and he was like, "You should stick to drums." Like that's like I genuinely that was the case. But I that stuff kind of fuels me to be real with you. So like I was like, all right, well, I want to go take lessons from like the best person I can, and so I like saved up a lot of money and. I took lessons from Ron Anderson for a while, who is like I had to save up for sure, but he's incredible. He's like he goes on tour with The Weeknd. Like he's his guy. But I think that's what's really cool is if you can save up 1 hour of a vocal lesson will teach you so much about yourself, and then it's recorded usually, so you can take that, hone it, work on the things that you were told to work on, and then once it's time again, go back. And yeah, it's been so important to me. And I now have a new vocal coach that I just had a breakthrough with Rachel Lawrence because I ended up eventually having a vocal injury, which was terrifying to me. But because I knew I wasn't just like a naturally gifted singer, I've always wanted to work towards just being the best I can. And that's why I have so much respect for all those vocalists out there that can do all the things that I feel like I can't at the moment, but something I strive for. So those compliments that you paid were very much appreciated. Thank you.
Of course, yeah. And just, I mean, piggybacking off of that, like there's going to be more compliments in a minute.
Validation. Let's go.
Yeah, just because I think it's really cool. And I think it's a very rare thing, especially in today's music, where you have a singer that uses their voice as though it's an instrument and not just as a vessel almost to say words, if that makes sense. And so going through Set It Off's albums, for starters, all the songs are super dynamic. And then vocally, what you're doing, where there's so much change in pace and rhythm, even in the song that I mentioned earlier to you, Why Worry, where you have those moments where you're singing really clear and fast,
Mhm.
almost like rap moments, and other times where
Yeah.
you throw in like a growl or a rasp or like a roar kind of thing. And it's like these very musical elements to the point where I can almost picture like a piece of sheet music with the words and like notations and stuff.
That's so cool. I'm glad.
Is there is there a kind of purpose and thought behind how you're singing, or is it more of a natural feel to the song where you just do what feels right?
Man, that's a great question. I think it's case by case. If it's a live show, I'm not thinking about a thing. It's just I'm there and we're just feeling the moment. But a lot of the times I notice that I can be really particular about I guess the word would be texture of the voice that I'm trying to accomplish. Like it depends also from album to album. Like we have an album called Cinematics, which is really like neurotic and crazy sounding, and there's times where I really wanted to capture that like insanity, and I would try to do that by like, but I also wanted it to sound genuine, you know. So there was like if you can't tell, I overanalyze so much. So the growl thing is funny. You brought it up, and I immediately got a flashback to like my mom, who's an amazing singer, would always really love and comment about it out loud when she would hear someone that had a good rasp or a growl when they would add that in. So I guess what I would do is I'd listen to a lot of my favorite singers who are all different. Like started with like, Beyonce, and like Destiny's Child was like something I really grew up listening to. In Sync, which are very talented vocalists, but they're more about just singing purely, and I always appreciated the vocalists that can do vocal runs. And I'm not crazy with those by any means, but I'll like practice it note by note, like it's a scale. Like I want to be able to see all these different things that all of my favorite singers can do, and try to add that to my arsenal. And I just work on it until I feel like I can do it in a song. And if I feel confident enough and I feel like that part of the song lends to it, then I'll try to throw it in.
Cool, yeah. And kind of jumping off of that, I know earlier I was mentioning dynamics and stuff, and
Mhm.
the songs themselves, broadening what we're talking about a little bit to the tracks. I feel like a general rule of thumb for Set It Off songs that there's a lot of motion going on musically. Everything pushes forward. There's not a lot of stagnancy
Yeah.
to the point where like certain songs, which I want to get into specifics a little later, but certain songs I would listen to and it's like, that's only 3 minutes. I felt like it was so much longer because it's such a progression.
Yeah.
And so kind of with that, could you take us into your songwriting process? Like, how do you turn these, I guess, stories or lyric sheets into the finished product that we listen to?
Yeah, that's another thing that's evolved for me quite a bit, as far as the overall process. In fact, that first EP I was telling you about on GarageBand, I think what I was really afraid of when I first started writing was living in space. I felt because I was so, I literally have a 30-ounce coffee in my hand. Like I'm always hopped up on caffeine. I'm ADHD, so I feel like I have to be stimulated nonstop in order for a song to be good. Or that's how I felt. And but then I would listen to like my favorite songs, and they would be able to do that. And there was um our old manager at the time was asking the musician, and then he was like, how does he breathe on stage? And I didn't think about it at the time, but then we were playing shows with those songs. It was like, he's absolutely right. I am exhausted. So that was one thing. I was like, okay, well, I need to be able to live in space more. And then like before Duality happened, I went into this like research mode where like I was on YouTube looking up like round tables, and like which was like there's this really cool round table with like Sting and Justin Timberlake and Pharrell Williams. I think it's Pharrell Williams. Pharrell is what he's known as. Um, and all of them, all these amazing writers just sitting around talking about what meant to them. And I was like treating it like a college course. I was like taking notes and stuff. And the one thing that I really took away, because my favorite is Max Martin. And if you look up, if you're not familiar with his name, just Google his name and his discography, and it's hit after number one hit after number one hit. He's the king of melody, and that was always what I realized was my priorities. I wanted the melody to be the most important part. So whereas I used to think that I wrote lyrics first and turned it into melody, because some artists do that. I noticed my favorite approach is to write the melody over like a guitar part or something with like nonsense words. Like I can't freestyle. I wish I could. But like it's just whatever comes out, like it's a nonsense sentence, but usually what it's all about is just nailing a melody that like gets me bobbing my head and like wanting to high five after we have that moment. And then I'll go in and treat it kind of like a crossword puzzle. I got all my blanks there. I know like the exact amount of syllables that I want. And that's something I'm really particular with is if one of the lines was 7 syllables, those words have to fit in to 7 syllables, and it has to emphasize as if it's a sentence. Like you wouldn't put the wrong emphasis on the wrong part or anything like that. But that's how I go about. I'm really meticulous about that sort of thing. But what's really important to me is over time, what I realize is because I love doing co-writes. I love working with other people and seeing how their brains work compared to mine and stuff like that. So when we're going back and forth on melodies, I don't care if it's mine or theirs, whatever makes us go, dude, like that when you feel that genuine excitement moment and you have it recorded on the voice memo, it's easy to have that moment, get really excited, and then forget it for a second, and then move on and be like, oh, what if we wrote this part instead? Like, what about that moment we just had? We both loved that. And that's really what it comes down to with anything creative. If you love it, other people will love it. And that's always been what's most important to me is I want to really listen to all of our songs.
That's super cool. Yeah. Really interesting process. And kind of jumping off that and staying in that mentality, I want to bring up a couple of specific tracks
Okay.
that I just want to see what you have to say about.
Sure.
For starters, Wolf in Sheep's Clothing off of Duality.
Yeah.
Super cool song, super interesting concept, like lyrically what you're doing there, where you take these fairy tales and fables and stuff, and you're like, nah, but what if it's darker?
Yeah.
And the kind of motion of that song, can you just take us behind the scenes on that? Kind of what inspired you to say, I'm gonna try and do this concept?
Oh, this song, the anger was palpable for this song because like when we first started as a band, we had no idea what we were doing, like most people do when they're starting off. And um we wanted to go on tour and we got a message from this band that was coming through Florida and they were like, hey, we're coming through Florida. Can you help us book these Florida dates? And I didn't, this is totally not how getting a tour works. And I was like, if I do, can we hop on the rest of your tour? And they said, yes. This was on a phone call. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was in my front lawn. And I was like, okay, awesome. Thank you. I hung up the phone. I started like punching the air, screaming, yes, I can't believe it. Well, anyways, fast forward, we do all the Florida dates. We get the next area is Texas. We have no money, like nothing. And we are working with what we have to get there, just work like surviving off of merchandise sales. And we do this one festival with them. And then they started acting really strange. And then we looked at the tour dates on our website just because out of curiosity, and then looked at the tour dates on their website. And we realized that they switched out dates and that they were just going to continue on the tour without us and stranded us in Texas and just took advantage of us to get their Florida shows. And that was my first moment of really realizing like how, like, I don't know if I can cuss, but crappy people can be. And like, not just in this industry, but in life. And it was the first time really getting that wake up call and it hurt, man. I was like, we had to like call our parents for money to get home. And I wanted to say that I don't hold grudges, but it stuck with me. It really stuck with me because I felt betrayed and it was another like chip on my shoulder. Like, okay, well, I want to be so painfully existent around you that like, you're like, oh, wow, they're still a band. That sucks. But like that, I wrote that song about this person because they seemed so friendly and so nice. And I was like, oh, cool. Like I made my first like band friend and stuff like that. And I don't remember what spawned the idea of doing nursery rhymes. I think it was just a feeling to just go down that path with like the bouncy feel of it all. And yeah, I think it started with Ba Ba Black Sheep. I think that just came out, and then we're like, all right, well, let's run with that. Now we have a theme, and then we tried to just kind of twist stuff and make it more chaotic and weird.
Super cool, interesting kind of story. And now the next song I want to bring up, Why Worry, which
Yeah,
I was mentioning to you at the beginning. Like seriously, one of my favorite songs. Period. Like I just
thank you,
love
man.
that message and that. I mean, musically, the song itself is just super dynamic and super awesome, and driving and like the claps and the rapping parts too, which I am able to now sing along with
Yeah,
painstakingly.
that's the fun part,
Um,
man.
yeah, but I mean, kind of same thing for that one. Do you want to just take us behind the scenes again on that track and what the writing process looked like and kind of where that
Yeah.
song came from?
Oh, that's a real fun story. So basically, I was I was going through something real. Well, I can't go too deep into it, but it was really freaking me out, and I hated it. And my mom has always been my rock. I've always had like a real battle with anxiety, and I tend to go to the worst case scenario, and then my brain starts to believe it is true, and then it just evolves to be worse and worse, and I literally just worry myself into a panic attack. And my mom has seen me go through all of that stuff, obviously. And so I called her and she was like, so you're worrying? I was like, yeah. She goes, is it helping? And I was like, no. She goes, then why are you doing it? And I was like, that's so simple and true and necessary to hear. Cause like we'll sit there over anything in our lives and just what if until we're blue in the face. Like, well, what if this goes bad? And what if, oh, and then what if this turns into that? And blah, blah, blah. And then it's just whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And you just need to take it as it comes. And honestly, hearing that advice really helped me out. And I'm still terrible at taking that advice, but what I hope from that song is people can hear it, and if they're going through a tough time, learn that it's okay and completely normal to go through, and that find some kind of comforts in just, you know, rolling with the punches. Are you there? Oh, I think we got frozen. Let's see. Oh no, what happened? Yeah, let's see. Yeah, I think we got frozen.
Am I back? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you and see you.
All right. My power just went out.
No way.
Dude, oh man, I was so upset. I had to like grab the hotspot.
You were quick.
I was really wow. That was I don't
That's
know where
kind
you
of
were.
you should keep that in the interview. That's incredible. That we were like, we're
Uh, I,
already back.
I totally am. Like I don't even know. I hope this doesn't like fuck up the recording or
You know
anything.
how hard it is not to make a why worry joke right now?
Yes,
Oh
yes.
man.
That's so ironic. That's exactly where you were.
That's so funny. So wait, what was the last thing you heard before the power went out?
You were saying that your mom is your rock, and you were on the phone with her, and she was like, kind of just why worry, and you
Yeah.
were like, it's so
Yeah,
simple, but it's
exactly.
so true. And I think that was the last thing, and then the lights flickered.
Yeah, I think what it was is basically like I'm still bad at taking that advice, but I hope that somebody that hears that song that's going through a rough time can like hear it and at least talk themselves down off the ledge when they're really freaking themselves out, because that's where like the real problem lies. I feel it's like it's so I want people to know how normal it is to feel that way. And I think a lot of the times we can end up feeling so alone and abnormal because all we see are people posting how happy they are all the time. And so we're like, oh, well, I'm not as happy as them, so my life must not be doing too hot. And it's not the case. Those people are going through hell, and they're just not broadcasting it, and it's okay. We're all going to go through hell, and I think that's kind of what I think that's almost the overarching message of Set It Off. Sometimes is breathe. It's okay. We're all crazy, and it's fine. And that's kind of what why worry stems from, is those internal demons. So like the verse is intentionally dark because I want people to feel the stress that is so normal to feel. And then the chorus is that liberation of taking the weight off your shoulders and like, don't worry, it's all good. You're going to be okay. Whatever you're going through is going to happen. That's fine. But you're going to bounce back, and then we're going to be okay again. And then you're going to go through something else, and then we'll go through it again, and then we'll be fine. And that's just kind of how I think that's like my worldview of life. It's just, it's going to be an endless cycle of ups and downs, and that's just fine. We deal with it. We can't ride at 100 the whole time. But the actual creation of the song story is funny to me because this was my first time working with our producer, now best friend, Brandon Paddock. And originally the song, the whoa, whoa, I tried to do a demo with it that ended up going down an entirely different path. And so we were supposed to write with Brandon. It's like one of our first co-writes, like with actually our first co-write with him ever. But anyways, we flew out to LA to do all these writes, and we arrived at the location he was ready to work at, and he ended up being late. And I was like, oh God, here we go. And then he gets there, and we're locked out of the place we're supposed to write at. And I was like, in my head, I was like, what the hell is going on? We went down because we had to wait for his guy to come unlock the door. So we went and grabbed the coffee, came back up, and I'm already like, this is going to be a disaster. So we go into the room, we finally get in, and he's like, all right, show me some demos you've been working on. So I was like, okay. So we just start scrolling through, and he goes, whoa, whoa, whoa. And he goes, that one. All right. And it's so confidently just goes, we're working on that one. I was like, okay. And then so he starts listening to it, and he just starts like getting so jazzed and moving and like emphatically and energetically as he's like coming up with melody ideas. And I've never witnessed this before. I've never witnessed anyone write like that. And it pumped me up. And there was like a piano over there, and we were just kind of figuring out like what chord progression we were going to use for the verse. And we're like, oh, what if it was kind of like Phantom of the Opera, like, and because like that was, I love chromaticism so much. So we kind of went along with that, and it kind of really leans into that feeling. And we were just going back and forth. And that second verse, the fast rap part, was one of those moments where like, what if it went fast? It was just a blast. I was taken back. It was one of those, we wrote that in like a matter of 4 or 5 hours. It was just a nonstop adrenaline rush. And I was like, I can't wait to write with that guy again. And then another to kind of, I don't know if you're going to ask this, but it's just kind of crazy to merge this into this story. We weren't supposed to work with him for Duality. We had another producer in line who, the day, I think it was the week of, or it was so last minute, we took our van from New York all the way down to Los Angeles with a non-refundable subletted apartment. And we got an email saying that he couldn't do it anymore. And we're like, what? Like, we can't afford this. No, like, no, please. Like, we were so like, we got the news on our way to a show. We were in the van and you could hear a pin drop. And so I called Brandon and I was, because that was my gut screaming at me. I was like, you remember what it was like working with him? Imagine if you could do that for a 12-song record. And so I called him and I was like, hey, man, I know you're really busy. This is out of nowhere. Our producer canceled on us last minute. Would you be interested in doing any part of our record? And he goes, I don't know, man, I got a lot of stuff coming up. Let me think about it. So he hung up and we're all just like in this area of just like, what's going to happen? And he calls me back shortly after and he goes, all right, cool. So we got Tommy English who's going to help us out. And then we got, I was like, wait, you're talking about a plan. So you're going to do this? He goes, yeah, we're going to make a record happen. And I was like, the weight got lifted off my shoulders. It was like a why worry moment, literally. And then he not only that, recruited two other amazing producers, Tommy English and Matt Appleton, who's the tenor sax player for Real Big Fish. And he's the one, by the way, that wrote the horn line for Wolf. I was always in control of horn lines, so they were very precious to me. But he was working on it one day, and I came in, and he's like, check out this part. And I was like, that's amazing. Like, I was so in love with it. And also, I'm a big ska fan. But it was just so incredible that it went from this session of like, oh, my God, this is going to be terrible, too. I can't think of anyone better to oversee this record than you. And we've been working together on every record ever since. We always write together.
That's so cool. I love it. It is like the why worry moment, and that's really cool. That's kind of prevalent in your journey.
Oh yeah.
Now the last like singular track I want to bring up is off of Midnight.
Yeah.
Unopened Windows.
Yes.
That one like really, it's really cool. I think on an album when you have sonically different moments, and that song is just, I think it's one of the slowest ones you've done, and it's slowed down. And it's on piano, and it
Yeah.
just really, I mean, similar to Why Worry, like you really tap into these messages that are like important and poignant messages. So do you want to kind of like talk about that one? Where
Absolutely.
did that come from and what does it mean to you personally?
So I had that concept. So this is one where like, so I should probably talk deeper because before I talked about how I only start with a melody, but that's not necessarily true. I have a notepad I keep on my phone called Song Topics. I have one called Song Topics, one called One Liners. Like if I think of a lyric that I think would be cool to insert if it applies. But Song Topics is like if I think of a concept just through conversation with people. I feel like that's where like a lot of ideas come out, like even in conversation, like just in interviews. Um, and I don't know where the idea incepted, but the concept of unopened windows is like about how um my father passed before I feel like I got to do a lot of the stuff with him that I wish I could have done. Like he was a huge Eagles fan, loved the team so much, but I didn't get into it until 2010, like 2 years after he passed. And now that I'm a mega fan, I'm like, man, it'd be so cool to go to a game with him, but I can't. I would, he passed before, like we could really go have a drink together. And I was like, it'd be so cool to just have a beer with my dad, and like there was all these different things. And I kind of conceptualize it as it's almost like you're in a house and you're seeing all these things play out through the window, but you'll never open it. You'll never be able to open it. It's just out there, out of reach. So I wanted to comment on that because I don't think I've heard a song about all the things that you wish you could have done when someone kind of expressed in that way. So that's where the concept came from. But I knew once I wrote it down, it was going to be a challenge because whenever I would tell one of my friends about it, because I'm always sharing stuff because I need to know if it's good or not. Whenever I would explain the concept, I realized how many words I had to use to get the point across. And I was like, that could be a problem because you have what, 3 to 4 minutes to tell a story. And the chorus is like 20 seconds, 30 seconds. And you need to make sure you get the whole synopsis in the chorus. I'm like, how the hell am I going to do that? So the the kind of precursor to this is the second song I wrote about my father. The first one was just called Dad's Song. And it was the hardest song I ever wrote because I was such a control freak about it and a perfectionist about it. And it was never good enough until I learned to let go a little bit. So I had to like let the producers help me more and like contribute more because if it was all me, it would never get done. So with Unopened Windows, it was my first time of reapproaching the topic, but with that mindset. So like I didn't really touch the piano. Like that was more the other writers in the room. And I just focused on the how am I gonna convey this message? And it was a really great experience just kind of getting it out. And it's also nerve-wracking because it's we knew this is gonna be the ballad of the record. And we always like to try to have at least one, whether it's a conventional ballad or an unconventional ballad. And it was it was honest. It's honestly the most emotional song I've ever played live on stage. Like I don't cry on stage, and that broke me down the first couple times because there is this moment at the end where in Dad's Song where we played Danny Boys, this old Irish folk tune. Me and my dad had this moment once. I was doing my high school spring concert, and we played Danny Boy. My dad was already diagnosed. He was driving me home. He pulled the car over and he just started sobbing, telling me about the story of it because that whole song is about a father telling his son who's about to go off to war that when he comes back from that war, he might not be alive anymore. And he saw a relation to that because I was about to go off to college and he was afraid of what eventually did happen. And so that song, Danny Boy, that melody, do 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 do, it's like if it's a classical song and it's that old, usually the rule of thumb, there's a certain amount of years that I always have to Google it because I don't remember it, but like it becomes free domain. So I inserted that in the song. And then this time we inserted it again because I wanted it to be tied in there. I think if I ever write a song about my dad, it'll be hiding in the background somewhere. But live, I bring out my clarinet. And at the end of the song, I play Danny Boy. I let all the instruments fade out. It's just a spotlight, and I'm playing Danny Boy on the clarinet. And I just, I don't know. I don't want to sound corny, but I feel like he's present every time I do it. And then the crowd, when they hum along to the melody, it just becomes the most overwhelmingly emotional feeling ever. So our live show matters a lot to us, and I know it mattered a lot to him. So I try to. I'm getting deep here. Damn. Well, like I just wanted to do the song justice, and I'm really proud of how that song came out.
That's beautiful. It's a beautiful story, and yeah, I don't think you're being corny at all in that he's kind of there. It's that
Thank
presence
you.
in those songs, and it's like you mentioned, it's Dad's Song. It's this one too, where it is. It's these very emotional things and these very personal stories.
Hmm.
I know for a lot of people, music is like a therapeutic outlet.
Yes.
Does sitting down in a studio and saying, "All right, I'm finally gonna write this song. I'm gonna do Dad's Song or Unopened Windows, and I'm gonna, really kind of get that out there." Does it serve that therapeutic outlet of kind of easing stuff?
I'd say songwriting is the introduction to your therapist, and then performing it every day are your sessions. Like it's you get to go in and you get to talk about your problems on a piece of paper, and there is catharsis in doing that. Like just writing it all down and feeling that satisfaction of creating that perfect line that gets across how you've been feeling. Um, and really feeling good about the song when it's done if you really love it. That's what the studio is for to me, and that's where I get my most enjoyment out of it is from the starting process to the finished product. How in love with the song am I? And if I am just over the moon for it, it's the best feeling ever. It's you can compare it to so many like creative processes. Like I love to cook, and like you start with nothing, and then if you really nail a dish, you're so proud of yourself, and it's that sort of feeling. And but the performing of it is really where I get to have my therapy, and it's been so nice. Like obviously I miss it right now, but I it's been so nice when I'm on the road because whether it's a song that I wrote about a specific person, I might have made amends with that person, and now someone else fits the bill of these lyrics, and now they're in my head while I'm singing it. And that happens often. I try to do that live sometimes because I want to feel it. I want to emote exactly how I'm feeling, and I'll literally be thinking about a specific scenario in my head while we're singing. So it's the catalyst to the therapy. Yeah.
Right, right. So you got your story, like you kind of mentioned earlier, you came out of high school, started going to college, you got your parents' blessing, you did that performance, and you
Hmm.
put the band together. At this point, and that was a little more than 10 years ago, right? And so at
Yeah.
this point, you guys have, hundreds of thousands of subscribers on YouTube, and you get millions of monthly listeners on Spotify. What is it like at the fact that you've generated this fan base and this audience, looking at where you kind of started?
it's yeah, it's hard to put into words, to be real with you. Like I often go back and remember what it was like, touring in the van, booking our own tours, headlining every time because no one wanted to take us out, and playing to 10 kids, sometimes less. And I I'm looking forward to these like next tours, and I'm seeing like the capacity of rooms we're booking now. And it's really satisfying because I know that we never got a handout. Like we just worked really, really hard for everything we have, and we'll continue to do that because we absolutely love what we do, and we absolutely love all the people that support us, and we feel like there's a real genuine connection there because I think they know we're just being us. There's no veil up or anything. One really cool thing I've been able to do during this pandemic is stream on Twitch a lot. And yeah, the video games part is cool and all, but like the most fun is like when getting to just be on a live stream and just talk to everybody and like kind of get to know them. And I think that's what's made this even more satisfying is just seeing the connection that we've been able to make with our fan base over the years, and how it just genuinely, everyone uses this word, but it just genuinely feels like a family. I literally like we bust like we just talk crap to each other the entire time. It's so much fun. But I don't know, man. There's a part of me that's so grateful for where we are right now, and then there's a part of me that's just insatiable. And I won't be happy until we're like headlining sold out stadiums. Well, but you need that, you need that sort of drive. But I am very, very grateful for where we are right now and how far we've come.
Awesome. Yeah. And just, I know you mentioned a little bit about Twitch during the pandemic. I just can't ignore that completely, even though we're kind of on the other side. What did your quarantine look like? I mean, in general or musically, was it a good break from tour to sit and work on songs?
Oh yeah, that's what we filled our time with, was like learning how to create an album in a pandemic was an interesting challenge because we were an artist that was we didn't release an album when the shutdown hit. We were at the end of our cycle. So in a way, we were very fortunate for that. And to like we're like, okay, well, we now know what to do with our time. I'm just going to start writing nonstop. And we have been. We're now in the process of narrowing songs down, and we have like 37, 38 songs to choose from. And I'm very happy about that. It's very hard to decide, but but that's what I was able to do with my time. Was I would book sessions multiple times a week, all from home at the time. This microphone that I'm doing the stream on, I actually recorded because we just did that midnight, the final chapter. The vocals for the acoustic version of Lonely Dance and Killer in the Mirror were in my apartment on this microphone. I think there's a handful of songs that are going to be on the next record that were done in my apartment on this microphone. I've never done that before. So it was like really learning to work with Mike Green, our producer, and him walking me through how to do certain things and becoming better at that at production myself. It was really cool. But that was a huge thing that filled my time because like we would write on Zoom like this. And luckily some genius made this plugin, which is this thing you throw into where you're recording, and it captures the audio and turns it into a link that you send to whoever you're writing with, and everyone's got to wear headphones or else you get like the kickback. But it's high fidelity, like zero point 0.1 millisecond delay of what you're hearing, from what he's hearing through his speakers in his studio. So there's been a lot of ways to make it work, and I'm really proud, very, very proud of the songs we came out with, and that people will eventually get to hear. Um, but it's been interesting, man. Like there's so much to process about like who you are, and like how do you deal with this amount of change. And what I notice is I can't sit still. Well, I guess that's kind of always been a thing, but I like if I want to write, if I'm not writing, I want to do Twitch. If I'm not doing Twitch, I want to fill my time. But then lately, what I've been becoming more comfortable with is just being okay with relaxing, and like honestly, just making the most of my time with my fiance. And I got a new dog. I would never be able to get a new dog before. Because I'd be on the road and I wouldn't want to miss his puppy years. And I think he's asleep behind me, actually. Yeah, he is. He's in the corner right there. But I I feel like I did the best that I can do in quarantine, and I'm happy. I really am, and that's what I'm the most proud of throughout the pandemic is just coming out of this not feeling completely lost right now. And no, I feel like it kind of trained me mentally to deal with the stress of extreme change and just accept it a little bit better. I feel more mature coming out of it.
Awesome. Yeah, it's great to hear that you're happy and not feeling lost. I feel like that's a very important thing, obviously, to stay kind of be okay being with yourself, you know?
Yeah, and I think that's what it really is like being okay, being with yourself, but now with the reopening is like trying to get back out there and like talk to humans again.
Right.
It,
What does
it's
it
so
look like to talk to people?
I know it's so weird. It's the only comparison I can think of is if you've ever been in a long term relationship and then you break up and you have to start talking again. It's like how do I do this? What is this even like? It's definitely interesting for sure. And I get everyone because I've gone through some real low lows in this as well. But again, I guess it's just kind of learning to accept that that's fine. Yeah.
Right, definitely. And just to kind of close this out a little bit, I have to ask. I know you were talking that you have like 30-ish, 40 songs for the new album.
Yeah.
Is there anything at all you could tell us about that? Like even like themes you're going for the record, or maybe when we might expect it.
Oh, let's see. I can't do like dates or anything, but I can say we're in the process right now of narrowing them down. Sonically, and this is I like to like show my demos to people who are going to shoot me real straight, like tell me if it's awesome or if it sucks. And everyone unanimously have said this is the best stuff we've ever written, and that's what makes me the happiest so far. It with every album we grow or we change with who we are as people, and I think whereas the age I was in for cinematics when I was really intense all the time and crazy and dramatic. I'm not that as a person now. So there you're gonna hear some songs where I'm a little bit more relaxed vocally. I'm fine to just kind of lay back in the pocket and let something happen, then bring the intensity in the chorus. I think I've expanded my emotional dynamic range in this album. There I have my anger, but I also have my I don't know, just what's the word? My just being content in the moment. And it's a side that think no one's ever heard from me before. And it doesn't dominate the record by any means, but it's featured, and I think that that's really neat. And it's cool to hear set it off with that sort of flair for the first time. There are songs that are similar as far as vibe goes to the previous record, but there's songs that kind of push the envelope, the things we've never done before. And there's songs, that are experimental, but songs we think are just not to sound cocky, but we think are going to smash. And we're really excited, man. It's a nerve wracking process because this is where it's the unknown. It's like, all right, well, we think we know what's best, and we hope that we're right for everybody else. So yeah, that's where we're at now.
That's super cool. I'm definitely very excited to hear what you come out with that. Yeah.
Hell yeah,
And
man.
then,
I'm ready, man. Let's go.
yeah, I mean, put it out right now.
I wish.
And that pretty much does it for me, unless there's anything you wanted to add at all.
Pretty much just stream our stuff on Spotify. We just released an acoustic version of Happy All the Time where we finally you get to really hear the gospel choir in there. And I think it's a song people can really use with the reopening right now. And we have a music video for that on the way. So something to keep in mind.
Super cool for sure. Yeah. Well, it's been a real pleasure. I'm so glad that we could do this. And, maybe when the next record comes out, we can link up again and
I
talk
would
about
love
it.
that. Absolutely. And I can't believe we made this work through a power outage. It's insane.
You know, why worry,
Yeah, right. Hey, that's a tagline right there.
Exactly.